Well, welcome back, Mike from Canavan Wealth. I woke up this morning and there was a Russian insurrection. It was obviously what's going on is pretty crazy. I would assume by the time most of the people watch this, it will already have been old news. So this is not intended to be kind of a breaking news segment, but kind of my thoughts as to how I view like a world shaping event like this may or may not be. I mean, literally breaking. This is news is changing as we talk. When I was playing pickleball with my son, all the talk was about the Wagner group driving tanks towards Moscow. Moscow now, the front line is still this: Putin looks to crush Wagner group. But you see up here breaking news: Wagner's chief says his forces will stop their march on Moscow and return to their camp after a deal was brokered by Belarus. So we have no idea at this exact moment. For reference, it's about noon Mountain Time in the U.S. here, as to what exactly is going to go on. I'll give my thoughts on it, in a little bit. I want to really talk about the markets because I'm absolutely not qualified to talk about the civil war or the power play here. I'm no more qualified than any American who's just been following the war in the Ukraine quite a bit. So what I really want to talk about is the markets, right? Because it is Saturday here, so the markets are closed, but this is the type of event where you have no clue what the markets are going to do in terms of where they're going to move on Monday. Or the more interesting question, what would have been happening if this was Monday morning, right? Like, imagine the markets opened 4 or 5 hours ago in the middle of this. How does the world react to this? I have no clue. And to that point, this is so interesting from a financial advisor when you're talking to clients about why you have to be in the right portfolio before things like this happen. We're in kind of a regrouping phase in the market here. It's June 24th. So we had kind of a down week last week, but we had record weeks before that where the market has kind of rallied. Not shocking that we've been down for a week. Most people see this kind of as a regrouping healthy phase. When the market does nothing but scream up for week after week after week, it gets pretty scary. So is this going to move it, right? It's so hard to understand where the next step is. Before this headline came out, which was literally 15 minutes ago, this was like, holy crap, we're seeing the start of a civil war in Russia, insurrection, whatever it is. But you don't imagine someone drives his tank column towards Moscow without serious plans. And then, right, so you think like, okay, this seems to be like at least a break in the war in Ukraine. You can't imagine if they're going to be fighting in Russia that they're not going to pull troops off the front lines. And then this changes everything, right? Like all of a sudden, this is, he's stopping. There was a deal brokered by Belarus. So obviously we don't know how this all started yet, at least according to what I've read on my phone while driving around this morning with my son. We went to pickleball and got some lunch, and I was kind of following this haphazardly through that. We don't, as far as we can tell, we don't know how this started. And at first, before this most recent news article, I was thinking, okay, this is like premeditated. His comments, right? So like a couple of days ago, maybe it was just Friday, the Wagner Group really, in his probably harshest criticism of Russia, criticized them for the motives of the war, I believe, which was crossing a line that I'm not sure he had really crossed yet. And I thought, okay, maybe that was just like the start of him justifying this insurrection, and this was premeditated, because you can't imagine that someone wakes up Friday morning, Saturday morning in Russia and thinks like, okay, I'm just going to rebel against the state government, the state military, and I'm going to take my mercenary force and fight the people who are employing me. That it's got to be premeditated is what I thought, right? But now if you have this premeditated, why like the deals are being struck? This is odd. So now my head, and again, I'm not qualified to talk about the war. I'm just I'm trying to give my thoughts on it as to how a financial advisor reacts to something like this, which is coming. But so now I say, okay, so there's this deal brokered. Possibly the timeline here is that he makes these comments. He is contacted by the Russians and say, like, you're done. We're arresting you. They attempt to arrest him. Something along. They say, turn Wagner over to the next guy or whatever it is. But you're going to be arrested or charged with mutiny. And then his reaction is like, well, the heck with that. We're going to go take over. I forget this, Rostov, and we're going to drive to Moscow, right? And then some deal is struck. We're like, oh, you didn't take that very well, shockingly. So I guess that seems like the most, that this was actually not premeditated, that there was no like long-term plan. They'd been planning this for a week or two as to what they were going to do. So from a market standpoint, as an advisor, right, it's very, I don't think people realize the difference from a financial advisor, where people often ask financial advisors, what would you do if it was your money, right? And it's a bad question to ask financial advisors, because our job is not to do for your accounts what we would do for ours, because we are different people in different situations with different risks, and we are there to invest your funds for you in the way that will best suit your needs. So I am not the type of person that bets on an event like this, right? I would not possibly guess. But if I did feel like, oh, this is going to be the end, Ukraine's going to win this. This is going to expedite the war. Let's imagine that we didn't have this headline of this deal, right? It's literally 30 minutes ago. And we think, oh my gosh, there's going to be a civil war in Russia because this was some type of premeditated event. And Wagner kind of has the jump on Putin. This could mean the end of the Ukraine war. This could mean very good things for the market. It's hard to imagine how it's bad for the market, I guess, is the one thing that kind of jumps. It doesn't mean that the market won't be down on Monday. Generally, when there's like earth-shattering news like this, the market typically at least starts down. But in the long term, I don't understand how the war gets worse because of this, unless, I don't know, these two make up and all of a sudden they start maybe listening to Wagner, and Wagner's been right through all of this. But with Wagner criticizing the motives of the war, it doesn't seem like they want to continue this fight. So I can't imagine this elongates the war, but I'm not qualified to make decisions on that. But if we are going to make decisions for our clients, right, there are very few clients that work with a financial advisor who wants them making emotional decisions around their opinions of current events. Or if they want that, the simple truth is they shouldn't, right? We shouldn't, as financial advisors, in my opinion, the good ones, should not be making decisions around how we trade accounts based on events like this, because, as I've mentioned it, I am not qualified to try and figure out whether this helps Ukraine, doesn't. I don't know anything about internal Russian politics. I did some quick Google searches. Wagner's about 50,000, 40,000 of which are convicts, and Russia's about 300,000, but they expect out of that total number that there's been about 100,000 casualties, not necessarily deaths, but casualty count of people, removed from war. Doesn't seem like a particularly fair fight, but if this was premeditated, right, Wagner might have some type of an advantage if they were able to, sway some various commanders. Because, civil war, like, all rules are off. It can get crazy in a civil war when the people in the military are literally having to decide who they're going to fight for, which, very often just becomes proximity. Oh, Wagner's already here and has taken our base. Guess who we're going to be fighting for now? So that's just, I wanted to get a quick video out specifically before the markets opened on Monday and before we get more news as to this around the way I think when events like this, because this is a major event, right? In back when we look back on the Ukrainian war many years from now, hopefully this will be a thing of the past. This is going to be one of those key events that we don't know how it's going to change the outcome of this. So I wanted to quickly get a video out in terms of kind of my thoughts in terms of where and what you do in a market situation like this. And the truth is you do nothing. You have to be in the right risk portfolio for the time, right? You can't be trying to game the market. Oh, we're way up, so a regroup is going to come, so we're going to get to bonds because something like this happens. Maybe the market surges on Monday, you don't know, or the opposite, which is you're trying to play the market. You're in too aggressive of a position for clients that are not in that risk profile, and this changes. Some weird thing happened. Belarus comes into the war because of this, and now there's different fronts. It's hard to imagine all the different things that could come out of this. But if your clients' portfolios are not in the right place when something like this occurs, oh man, it can get real ugly, right? Which is why you don't bet on current events. So, that's it. I really just wanted to kind of record this little video. Here is the usual disclosures. If you like the video, please do subscribe for similar content. I'm sure I will do a follow-up to this week around what actually happened to the markets, the rest of the current events of this will kind of follow through. But just want to get something out. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.